if he could take a different power. But that probably won't happen for a while. Maybe.
Here's what I will say. I believe we'll have order rules before we have a codex.
A codex for who?
Anyone.
Oh, I think we're gonna have a codex like.
Functionally,
I think we're gonna have a pre-release. I think we're gonna have a pre-order for a codex on the launch day.
like
And I think I know who it is, but
Well,
we're live right now, so I'm not gonna say.
okay.
Robots.
What's that?
Robot hands.
All right. We are streaming.
You're streaming.
You're sure.
You're streaming.
I think for this we should close the garage door. For this
At
specifically.
least the one.
Because we're basically
Because we're gonna
facing.
stand right here, and the only camera that's on is the
Just
one
be our
we're
dark
gonna
shadows looming back and forth as we talk.
What's that?
Just be our dark shadows looming back and forth. Can you turn the stream on for that part? Welcome to the stream. Garage
Sound check.
Did you just drop the mic?
Like threw it at something.
We had 6 people, and now we have 3.
Yeah. I would have done the same.
Sorry, everybody.
Oof. Ping to the Discord.
I already did. Hello, everyone. I was trying to make it so I could see chat while we're talking. It's hard because I'm old.
You
Alright,
just
guys.
need, you just need another laptop or on your phone.
Let's all come gather around this table and be on the screen together. I am as far this way as someone can be. Enjoy the delay. Where's Vince? Oh my god! Oh, there he is. Oh, thank God.
I'm
I
still
thought-
here.
I thought you were vampire for a minute.
I am.
With this one here.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works.
Yeah, oh yeah, COVID looks is great. I look really good. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so we're
We're gonna be very.
starting in 2 minutes, so we can stand here for a second.
We're gonna be very.
Do you guys have anything in particular that you would like us to talk about? You should ask us now.
Yeah, hit us up.
Besides something like Warhammer, 'cause that's what's gonna happen anyway.
Enjoy this thing.
I do feel like with war vehicles, you should always be like, wow, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do, right?
I found that the Crimson Hunter XRs perform better if I made jet noises when I played with them.
I believe I'm far more likely to make noises with my vehicles while losing.
Okay. Seth has got a question. He also says that Chuck and I standing in front makes us look extra tall.
Perfect.
I don't know. This is actually just kind of how the difference in height between Peter and I. It's just kind of.
This is
This is just life.
Yeah.
My parents are 5'9" and 5'1". I've got no answers. You don't want them to see like your beautiful work while we're podcasting?
I was just
I
thinking,
can't
I
really
thought we
look
were
at
directly
it.
into a game, so
What's that?
I thought we were going to go directly into a game.
I think I want to go directly into lunch.
I don't have to worry about this too much.
Okay.
Here, look at this guy. He's flying around. So definitely something like better looks.
I think I have a good foreground setup.
I need to be back farther. There we go. Okay, so welcome to Best in Faction. I'm Colin, and this is Chuck, Vince, and Peter, and we are here for our competitive 40K podcast. This is different from normal. It is echoey. I am just going to apologize for that. This is the best way for us to do this particular episode. I'm sorry if the audio is not up to our normal, incredibly high quality.
Yeah.
Right?
Standards.
Yeah, our incredible standards. Peter and Vince have not been on the show before, so I'd like to kick them off with them just talking for a minute about their history of 40K. These are both members of the 40K team that Chuck and I are part of. In fact, Vince was a founder of that team. And so, why don't you go first? How did you get into 40K? How long have you been playing?
I've been playing since the exact beginning of 7th edition. I got started basically as soon as I had a job and could pay for models, and I started collecting deathcore like a responsible person. And, you know,
Straight onto the hard road.
Yeah.
Because if it's the future and there's a lot of laser beams and robots, you're probably going to want dudes on horses.
exactly. And so, you know, emboldened by that experience, I then went on to play Dark Eldar in 7th edition and have an even better time. You know, I just kind of lived in that life for a while until probably a couple months before LVO 2019. I decided, you know what, I'm going to do competitive at the behest of one of my friends, which led to me joining this team, playing a real army like Craft World Eldar, and you know, also still loving my horses. I'll play them forever, good or bad, as long as they're legal.
All right, great. And Vince, what's your history with 40K?
I've been playing 40K for about 25 minutes or so. No, I've been playing 40K since since Chuck and I got the box set for 2nd edition a long time ago. I'm not even trying to remember dates.
94.
Yeah, damn it. Don't do that. And played mostly throughout that time with a break somewhere in 5th or 6th or whatever it was. Started with orcs because they came with the box set, and then realized that wasn't fun, so went to stunties. And since squats were obviously powerful, they had to get discontinued. So right around.
Probably because of you.
Oh yeah. No, I was definitely not a hardcore player. And then decided, well, everyone else thinks Eldar is awesome and they can fly high. So I've been playing Eldar since 3rd edition. Never playing them well because, you know, the Eldar, pointy ears. And then probably right around the beginning of 7th edition, started getting way more serious about playing 40K for events and things like that. And then found out about Knights, and now I just play Knights all the time.
Yeah, those giant stompy robots.
Because why would you not play giant robots?
Exactly, and the fun thing for me about this weekend was that, so a friend of mine named Brian taught me how to play Warhammer 40K, and it turns out that wasn't the actual rules at all. And then a year or two later, I started hanging out at a game store that Chuck worked at, and I was probably 16, 17 years old, and we were playing mostly Magic the Gathering, and then for some reason we stopped playing Magic the Gathering, and I don't remember why.
3rd edition 40K.
Is that really what it was?
Yeah.
So I played a bunch of 2nd and a bunch of 3rd with these guys, and then I left for college, and we then didn't see each other for 18 years, something like that.
Just a little break.
And so when I got into 40K, for those that haven't heard this story on the podcast before, when I got into competitive 40K, I went to look for a local team, and there was a team called the Mughal Legion, and the head of the team was Chuck Arnett, and I'm like, well, I know who that is. I'm just going to message him.
Like this sounds.
And I messaged him not having any idea if he would respond. Like, I hadn't seen you in forever. I didn't remember, like, we were reasonable friends, but our age gap, which is only a couple of years, is a bigger deal then than it is now. So I was definitely the young kid in the group. Because the other guys, like Chris and Sam and stuff, were older than me too, I think. So, and Ian and stuff, yeah.
You were definitely the younger one.
Yeah. So, and now it's 40K, so I'm old. Right? Now I'm 40. That's really old in 40K. So
40 and 40.
yeah, so we had this idea for 9th edition launch, and this is a really hard time, of course, to figure out how do you play 40K safely. This particular group decided that all of us would just we're already social distancing, and we would just be strict about it leading up to this.
Yeah.
We would just not see anybody. We'd wear masks around everybody if we had to, and we would just be really super careful. So that allowed us to have basically a gamer weekend, which is what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We've played 4 games, 8 games total, but four
Four
rounds.
rounds.
Yeah, 8 games of 9th edition, and we've learned a lot. And so we thought, let's do an episode where we just talk about what we've learned so far, and then the next thing you're going to see from BiffPod is going to be different from normal. We're going to split up to our individual groups of factions, and we're going to just release faction focuses for 9th edition. So Chuck will be in charge of Orcs and Chaos and Necrons.
Look at that excitement.
Not that that's foreshadowing of anything. But I used to be the Necron guy. I sold my Necrons. Chuck is taking over Necrons for the podcast. I will be doing Tau and all of the different elf ones. I think we'll probably do them all separately. Actually, Drukhari's in such bad space, man. No.
Just do them last.
Just do them last. That's where they belong.
Exactly.
So I'll be doing elves and Tau, and then what's the other one? And bugs. We are going to do Nids and GSC together because I think that there's a lot of synergy there. And those episodes will be individually released, and they'll be one of us with experts from that faction. So, as an example, the Bugs episode is John Lennon and Nick Nadavati and Alex McDougall and myself. So 4 people that have won major tournaments with Bugs, talking about Bugs in 9th edition. You'll see that, I think, starting in the next week, because I think Mitch is already rolling. I think Mitch is ahead of us, and I think he knows who he's
It's usually
doing.
the case.
And also, Mitch is going to do an individual episode for everything. He's like, I'm going to do a Dark Angels episode and a Blood Angels episode. I'm like, whoa, I will post them. But like, that's a lot. So that's what you're going to see next from us. Yes, I am in fact wearing my Canhammer shirt. It does say Sherman on the back of it.
Oh,
Makes me
nice.
very happy. It's also very comfortable, and it gets worn semi-regularly around the house, actually. Okay, so let's talk about 9th edition. Let's talk about general things that we've learned. Like, what are the overarching things that we've discovered, and then we'll talk about each of our games and a little bit that we learned that specifically to those. So, I would say I'll kind of get us rolling with the biggest thing. This is a different game. This is a fundamentally different game. I don't think you can castle, like at all. I think that your army has to be durable. I think your army has to be able to move. And I think that it has to be balanced. I think you have to have punching or an answer to punching. I think you have to have shooting or an answer to shooting. I think you have to be able to hang in every phase of the game or have a durability against it. Like Tau can't hang in Psychic, but if they use drones, they could potentially,
You have to participate. You don't have to be active.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of putting it. So I think that's going to change what's good, and I think that what I'm hearing online is people saying, well, the missions are bad. I don't think they're bad.
It's different.
They're just different. And that's a great, exactly, well put. And so you end up with this situation where you're saying, what I've done for years isn't working, and so the game is bad. That's not the case.
Mhm.
Things are just different.
Well, I one of the things we've run into playing 40K a lot competitively is they've often taken what Games Workshop missions were or what have you, where their focus was on just put models on the table and then try to make some tournament rules out of it. This is Games Workshop coming out with building missions with tournaments in mind, and you can see that definitely reflects a lot in this mission design a lot different now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And what?
Very good for us long term as well,
Mhm.
because GW is now going to be balancing points from this point forward based on the missions that we were playing that they also built. So they understand everything we're doing. It's going to make their job easier, and when their job's easier, they'll do a better job for us. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, we've talked on the show previously about the fact everyone playing the same missions is important.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say everyone, I mean Australia, Europe, America. I mean everybody playing the same missions is really important. Game balancing against things that are only good in a particular meta is really hard. right? So I think that's a really big deal. Even if these missions are worse than the mission pack you were used to, play them anyways. They will get changed over time. GW will learn, but everyone solidifying on these missions is really good for the game.
And I would expect iterations off of this as opposed to GW or TOs
Yeah.
scrapping this and being like, we're gonna do something different.
Well, they've
I
given
would-
us. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I would expect iterations of this. So being like, I don't like these ones, I want them to change them, like play them, get familiar with them, because when they get tweaked or adjusted, if they do, then you're still somewhat familiar with them.
Each chapter approved comes with X number of new missions as well. So every year they're going to give us more. And also the league that we've seen, it's not just 6 missions.
Mhm.
So a TO can say, this is what my tournament will be, these missions here. Or they can say, I'm not telling you.
And I don't think they're all created equal.
No problem.
I think an objective in the middle of the table is bad.
I like it.
I think that so the big criticism of the game so far that I'm hearing is that going first is too much of an advantage. And we all agree, by the way, that in the current mission pack, there is not a huge advantage a lot of the time to going second. I would argue though that you absolutely can deploy in a way where your opponent will want to go second. I think you can absolutely deploy your army that way. So yes, there's a benefit to going first. Our games don't reflect he who goes first wins. What we've seen this weekend at all.
Well, my games did towards the beginning and then less towards the end as I adjusted the way I was, like, I've changed. I brought a bunch of lists I was going to play, and all of them except for the first one have changed before I played them. Because I learned very quickly.
That we were wrong.
That's not the game. I'll change and adjust.
Right.
The paradigms associated with list construction in 8 don't apply. They just don't. Like,
Just throw those all away.
you like people are getting excited about, oh, MSU's a thing now, right? Because there are no kill points like in ITC. It's like, I mean, it can be, but if you're not prepared to take and hold objectives, kill points, regardless, you're gonna lose. And that was a really big lesson. And just learning to play around the necessity for board control is huge. If you're not prepared for that, like, it's gonna feel bad.
So I would articulate this slightly different. So, if we were, let's say that Chuck is playing sisters, and let's say he's got 80 sisters and they're ignoring AP2 4 up and girls, okay? And he goes first and he puts them on all the objectives. Now they're not actually fast enough to be on all the objectives, but let's say he's on enough of them that it's a problem, okay? And you say he won because he went first. As a community, those of us that want to be really competitive, we need to take a step back from that and say, no, we're not. That's not he went first, so he wins. How are we going to answer that? The lists that do that have 80 sisters that sit on the objectives, how do you counter that? And if you don't know right now, that's okay.
It's so interesting. I think a better example.
Okay.
The Dire Avenger list that you played
Yeah.
is very similar. Because there is a Ezran is standing amongst the Dire Avengers saying these guys are impossible to kill with this 4 pinball. Turn 2 or so, I figured out how that was working, and I spread my army out. And you had to spread out to adjust, and I was able to kill the chaff on the sides. If I'd known that from the beginning, the game would have gone much better for me.
Sure.
So that mid-game, one experience I learned, and then it's the same way. The Mission of Fires is in the middle, and those sisters are there. They can't get on all 3 of those objectives and all be -2.
Right.
All of them are -2. So you gotta, it's gonna take some time to adjust because the game is so drastically different.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, the definitely the big thing, scoring your primaries, scoring at the beginning of your turn
Yeah, having to stay there
is a big,
and take it,
is a big
or having to make it so that like that objective secure guys can run and jump on your objective and take it back from you.
I think that they, in general, I think that some things should be tweaked to make going second a little bit better, but I don't think it needs to be a lot better. And an interesting point is, a lot of people are saying that he who goes first is always winning. I would point out that I talked to Nick Nanavati at Art of War yesterday, and he said that they're seeing maybe 55-60% going first win.
Yeah.
That's probably the way it's always been.
But
Like,
it's always been
that's
that way
probably
one
about-
way or the other. There's points in like 6 and stuff where going second, you had a higher chance with, but it's always going to be something. If they get it down to that 5 to 10, that's good. If it's like 20, we have a problem.
Yeah, I don't think 55 to 60 is bad at all, especially when you consider the fact. So the reason I'm pointing that out is we aren't seeing it. Nick isn't seeing it. So the people that have had the rules for a while, which is not us, we've had them for a little while.
But we've had the luck to learn from him.
Yes, but like Nick's group's had the stuff and they've been playing on a lot, and that's not what they're seeing. So I think with experience, the disparity of going first will be lessened. I'm really not worried about it. I have to think about it. How do I deal with 120 orc boys if they take the table on the first turn?
Mhm.
Right? That's a meta question you have to ask yourself when you're building your list.
Just similar, but to add on to that, one of the things that I think I've noticed over the last 2 days is when you're building your army, you want waves. You're going to want to take some chunk of your army that you know that functions together and push that out into the middle of the table and take the table for you. But you're going to want something to back them up because your opponent is going to be able to respond to that wave you sent out.
Mhm.
So you're going to want your counter charge units. You're going to want to send an assault unit in to kill off your opponent's stuff. They come in, they shoot you off. You have something new to put in that place.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have that, and you need to be going, okay, well, I'm going to have to at least do that. I'm going to need 3 waves in order to get my primaries. Do I want a 4th wave, or can I muddle something together to keep them off for, one of their turns, like that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important consideration that most of the way I've built lists since it's brought in Death Stars just doesn't have.
Well, there's a bunch of list archetypes that just don't work now.
Yeah.
Tau. I'm not saying Tau is screwed. Tau, trip type, the way that it played, you can't play that way.
Mhm.
Because you can't in ITC 8th edition, you could give up board control and still win.
Mhm.
You could just kill and outkill them and do better on secondaries. That's literally how Double Superiority won. It would hold one objective, it would never get hold more, except maybe late game if it was killing you enough.
Yeah.
And then it would get kill more. So it's getting kill, hold, kill more, and you're getting hold more, and kill. That's the same. Now if I do better on secondaries than you, I win.
Yeah.
That's literally 8th edition ITC.
8th edition ITC, there was 2 ticks. There were 1 point apiece for objectives. These missions are 3 ticks for objectives a turn.
And no for kill.
Yeah, and 1 less turn.
Which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I have not missed the 6th turn, but it is very noticeable.
I think it's actually, it feels a little bit more like 2 less turns.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The way the scoring is done,
It feels smaller.
it's
Yeah.
like turn 1 and turn 5 are half turns.
Right.
And so that's very interesting. I have found myself mid-game running off of instinct and going, oh crap, and looking at the scoreboard and I'm out of time. I only have 1 more turn to accomplish things. I've screwed up, right?
Tyler, actually, I don't know how to say Tyler B, because I think Bortel. I don't know how to say your last name, Tyler. Tyler points out, I worry that we'll have see a big divide in skill level between the lower and mid tables may be first hammer, while higher tables may not be. That divide usually translates into GW making big changes. I think I think that's actually what I was thinking about when I was trying to articulate what Nick's group's experience has been. Right? Like,
That's actually a really good observation. Because if it is miserable for the majority of people playing the game, then a change has to happen whether it's balanced or not. That's not important. It's got to be fun.
there's a percentage of the population that can't adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Right, to the way the game is different now. They're gonna play the list they've been playing since 6th edition, and if it's bad, it's bad. And if that group doesn't have fun because he who goes first wins,
Yeah.
but I don't know that that's true. We don't know that that's the way that's gonna go.
Yeah, we don't know enough now. We haven't learned enough yet
Mm-hmm.
to really even say where that's
Right.
going.
The other big thing I want to say
Yeah,
too
of
on
course.
this is even with us trying to figure out the rules, or looking up units because we haven't played them in forever, things like that. The games definitely still feel like they're going real quick.
Yeah,
They're not like 30 minutes or anything crazy like that, but like those 2.5 hour, 3 hour games, they're not going that long.
I also feel like the time is like there's definitely a time difference like you're talking about, but I feel like the game is more active.
Yeah.
I am engaged more throughout the entire thing, so I'm more participatory, and so it's actually a funner game that way.
mm-hmm.
So it's both feeling and actual time is shorter.
Yeah. I think it feels like it flies.
Yeah.
I think that the speed improvements are huge. I think it feels like it's
They
really
did a
well.
very good job with some of these ideas.
Okay.
I could still do without all the crafter rerolls, but that's different. That's a whole nother.
Yeah. So now you really felt bad while you were wrecking the elder player that he was getting all those rerolls.
It was mostly when he killed my knight first turn, but that's a whole other.
Okay.
I rolled well, he rolled poorly, but then, karma came back.
So let's talk about takeaways from our specific games. The first game of the weekend on stream was I played a Tyranid list with Pyrovores and Zoanthropes and 2 T-Fexes and Exocrine and Goths and a Neurothrope. And Chuck played
2 squads of 10 Emperor's Children Terminators and 2 squads of Emperor's Children bikes at full size.
the game is different.
Yeah. You can't, well, I'm not gonna say you can't. That scenario, and that list, and that, I could not put all 20 of those Terminators in Deep Strike, and of course I did. It's not okay. I can't plan on like, oh, I'm gonna drop some Terminators on turn 2, and I'm gonna charge in using my roll to 6 strat, and then do that again on turn 3. I will lose the game while I'm waiting for those Terminators to arrive. Because first turn, Colin's like, oh, I own all the objectives. What are you going to do about it? I was like, well, I guess I'm going to try to use these bikes somehow.
And the T-Fax is like, oh yeah?
Yeah, come on over, bikes. Let's have a party.
Blah, blah.
Right, you have to be more on the table and aggressive from the beginning, I think. That's one of the ideas. I immediately was like, okay, I love reserves. I think you're going to have a unit of reserves that does something interesting, that makes your opponent go, I have to be careful about where I'm putting my things, and you stretch them, but you don't want to go any farther than the minimum to make your opponent change.
I think that's right. I thought the durable board control with Smite behind it that Tyranid list had is so 9th edition. I felt like that list just came on the table and was like, oh, 9th edition. You say, all right, well, I'm very comfortable here.
The Plague Bearers with Thousand Suns behind it template, just put in different ways, seems to be very functional.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way.
Vince and I played a game where I just took a bunch of Poxmonger Death Guard war machines, and they're like, we have 4 up invuln saves and 5 up feel no pains, and I put a battalion instead of a Supreme Command, but I put the 3,000 Suns characters, and it worked fine.
I'm going to take a slight detour. They're asking why I said that you could potentially deploy to make your opponent not want to go first.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you hide the things, you make it so they can't hurt you, and you put a counter punch that will destroy them if they get on the objectives.
Yeah.
Right? It's not anything like Kraken Stealers aren't really a thing anymore, but they're a really good example of that. So if there's objectives like this, and I have Kraken Stealers right here, I can go to this objective, clear it off, and come back. So are you going to take it?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm going to talk about Peter and I's game with, when I played Port Orcs.
Mm-hmm.
He had Bulgrin right up here, and he had a Wyvern back here. If he didn't have the Wyvern, I would have had him go first maybe. Because his Bulgrin were hidden, his army was hidden, there's no interaction, it was just about how far I move forward. But because he had the Wyvern, I knew it was going to do significant damage. I needed that turn of movement before he shot me. I couldn't let him shoot me with that thing twice before I got in there. But if he didn't have it, it wouldn't have mattered to me first or second.
Yeah.
I still think I take first.
Yeah.
Because there's not an advantage for second,
Right.
but it would have been like the minimal, tiniest possibility percentage better.
Yeah, you forced me to show my hand with the Volgren first, as opposed to using the Volgren to try and get you off of an
Yeah,
objective.
because if Peter gone first and put the Bulgrin here, I could have charged him with 120 boys. So that wasn't going to happen. His turn wasn't going to be different if he'd gone first.
The other interesting thing to keep in mind is that with 2 armies that both deep strike, sometimes being the second person to deep strike is great.
Yep.
That's another thing to keep in mind.
Or outflanking, since like that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So while we were playing that game, you guys were playing something.
Yes. Yes, we were. We were playing Imperial Guard versus Knights, and honestly, there's not a whole lot of tremendous takeaway from this one, other than that Knights are better than people are probably saying they are, at least in the initial kind of run of things, because Knights are, by virtue of playing the game, are just going to be on a bunch of objectives. 4, pretty much, if it's pure Knights, because that's how many Knights there are. And if you can't dislodge that quickly, they're going to keep scoring, and you're going to have a hard time dealing with it. Imperial Guard, we're in a good position to do that because I have plenty of OBSEC to just throw on things and decap, and I can crush armor really hard. So that, Imperial Guard remains Imperial Guard, but it was a really good showcase of the fact that Imperial Knights can just go forward, be on the objectives for 3 turns before they really start feeling the sweat, unless they get crushed.
Well, I think they go forward, they sit on the objectives for turns where they shoot you, and then they go, oh, okay, well, I'm done with this. Charge in and hold you in place and beat on you, and then you've lost.
That was one of the takeaways I got from that game, because you were castled up really well and you were outflanking. After I hit center board, I kept going, and I perhaps should have stayed another turn on there. But yeah, basically I was able to get a ton of points for the primary early on, and Knights are not easy necessarily to take off the table when you're playing all Knights. So that I think made a big difference for the primary a lot.
I feel like one of the reasons that a lot of people thought the Knights were going to be bad, and I kind of had the same idea, is this idea of obscuring terrain, where the Knight can't see anything behind Obscuring Terrain, but everybody can see him behind it. I think what changes that is they move 12. So if he's here and he can't see you, he comes over here and he sees you and then he charges this guy. He's
And
very
he walks over whoever's in the way.
yeah, all the time.
When I played against Knights, the fact that I couldn't move block you with Termagants
Yeah.
was deeply upsetting to me.
Yeah.
Because that is a big part of the way Mono and Tyranids beat Knights in 8th edition,
Yeah.
is that I would throw all my Gribblies on the board and you would be pinned. And I would just hold the table. And I had several games. I had a game against Denny at a tournament where I didn't kill his Knights and I won the game.
Yeah.
Because I just was sitting on objectives and it just took him
Yeah.
too long to kill me.
Also the big thing that I wanted to play around with this weekend was the banner of the Mount
And
Enterprise.
Macarius Ascendant, I think it is.
The I'm 10 objective secured models.
That was so. That was the thing that really kept him in the game because my counter to there being Imperial Knights was just Guardsmen, and that's deeply annoying for Imperial Knights to deal with because suddenly they just lose their objectives and they stop scoring. The fact he could project that kind of force and say, no, you need a lot of Guardsmen here in order to get me off of this objective, really pushed me back in like a couple of areas of the board.
In that exact scenario, he says you have to double your sacrifice.
100%.
That's,
And
Big deal.
that's a big deal.
yeah, doubling's pretty good.
So let's move on to game 2. Game 2, I was off stream. I played. What was game 2 on? I don't remember now.
Game 2, I think I played Chuck.
That was the one where you played on stream and we played.
We
played Death Corps tanks and Rough Riders against Wave Serpents with
Correct.
Dire Avengers and Crimson Hunter Exarchs, which I should talk about, and Wraith Lords.
Mhm.
So as expected, Wraith Lords are amazing. They were already amazing. They love the new change. They love the move and shoot penalty being gone. They love just trekking. I got my missile launchers. I'm just moving every turn because if you get near me, I'm gonna punch you. So they're really great. I said when the points came out, people said, "Well, Crimson Hunter Exarchs go up again. They're dead." They didn't go up by so many points that they're dead. The issue isn't that. I actually don't like them in 9th edition, and the reason why isn't something I predicted. The table's too small. The smaller table means that you can't deploy them, especially on turn 1, safely.
Mhm.
And then you can't move them safely. And they are 200 points, and while they're durable, they're only durable if I'm spending tremendous effort to put them exactly where I want them, which is how I played them.
Yep.
You know, you're here, and you fly way over here to this corner, and only some of the guns can now get you, right? That's not the way that this works anymore, because the armies are mobile, and the table is small, and the Crimson Hunter Exarchs are like, everywhere I go, their entire army can shoot me if they want. That doesn't work, so I did not like them. But I liked Wraith Lords, and the big takeaway from that game was, oh man, Dire Avengers.
Yes.
Which we're going to talk about more.
And Wave Serpents. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of
you wanna talk about
the segue
bumper cars?
of bumper cars.
Yeah.
So like in my initial I was wanting to write a lot of lists with Leman Russes, like triple flamers. I was taking advantage of the fact that Death Corps still have a Conqueror cannon for no particular reason. I wanted to leverage that to the best of my ability. Say, I want to run a bunch of tanks and see where that takes me. And the answer is, being able to shoot some of my guns in combat is cool. They still get turned off. Like the big one still gets turned off, and that means that if I don't have a lot of screening, and I didn't because I made the mistake of putting things in deep strike that I shouldn't have.
Yeah. That's a learning curve. for
Suddenly,
sure.
like, you bumper car one thing, you consolidate into another thing, 400 points of Liam Russ's stop shooting. And then a Wave Serpent falls back and charges more units the next turn. And that rippling across your entire army just shuts you down. And so that was kind of a sad day for the Imperial Guard.
The Imperial Guard did not do well in that battle.
No, it was a cool looking first turn, because I got first and I shot down a plane,
Yeah.
and it was very awesome. And then it all went wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So-
tanks still want some protection because, like, we're talking about flamers or Punisher cannons and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Well, if you drive a Rhino into it,
Oops.
that's not going to work.
Yeah,
Also, missile launchers with crafters wrecked your vehicles.
But yeah,
they everything they could see they killed, basically.
Yeah.
Every single turn.
What?
How could I?
Rafters?
Rafters.
So that was our game. And you guys on stream were doing Knights versus Parking Lot.
yeah. 3 Defilers, 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 3 Malefic White Drones, Poxmonger Relic in the middle. I cheated. I didn't know. and then so I also had the magic relics as well for the Thousand Suns. It didn't make a massive difference. It's a couple more wounds over the course of the game.
I noticed those.
No,
Sorry.
you did. I overkilled most of the things I touched. It went really great. We went kind of back and forth. I actually got in my own way with all those vehicles, kind of obviously, and Vince didn't get in his own way, so he got up early on the objectives, but I was able to do enough damage to him that I just kept pushing him down, and then I kept pushing my things on the objectives to make sure I stayed in the game, and I won by like 6 points.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a tip over the edge.
Just a little bit. That's what this.
Just a bit.
We'll talk about secondaries later, but also having to force you to commit more because I had the banner in the middle of the table.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I love that banner.
That
That banner got you probably 15 points over the course of that overall action. If you think about the 5 points it sold for me, and then the 5 points it got for you, and the 5 points it got for you again,
Yeah.
like that's a significant relic in
Yes.
in a game.
And smite spam still.
Oh yeah. Well, I only had 3 smites. It's the Thousand Suns didn't also bring in all these other damaging powers because I was playing with the +1, assuming that we're not going to continue that.
They all seem like they're smites tonight.
It's 10 more wounds a turn. Here, go away.
So then we went to bed, and I played against your knights,
Yes.
and I played that Tyrannidless,
Yes.
and it was fascinating. Super interesting game. So Vince went first. So I deployed in hiding like a scared little child, like I often like to do. And I think that was, we talked about it a lot, we're not entirely sure, but my gut is that was wrong. So Vince came at me, he did a bunch of damage to a turn effects, then it was my turn. The problem was, I spent the next several turns trying to get any sort of board presence. And also, I failed to kill a knight on the first turn.
Yeah.
Those two things were a really bad way to start the game. What shifted was when I discovered that the zoanthropes were actually a screen, because they're so durable.
Yeah.
Because I was running Leviathan, so they had the 6-up Feeling of Pain and the 3-up Invul, and sometimes I put Catalyst on them, and then there was 3-up Invul, 5-up Feeling of Pain, and you didn't like that.
Am I
No,
trying to hit?
well,
Yeah, and -1 to hit.
It's definitely one of those things. Like usually when the knight player decides, like, oh, there's the problem unit, I'm gonna shoot that.
All my knights are going to kill that thing.
When I go to put all those shots into those invulns and catalysts and things like that, like, yes, if you would have used those guys to screen and bully me back, it would have been a much different game.
Yeah, and so what it was for primaries, Vince went 15-15, 5-10,
Yes.
and I went 5-5, 15-10, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the primaries, he ended up 5-up, but what happened was I was able to max all my secondaries.
Right.
And your you wanted the secondaries you picked because you weren't able to kill the zoanthropes. You didn't get enough points from he was doing the kill wounds thing,
Yeah.
and you only got 6 points from it,
Yeah.
and I won by 3. That secondary was the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played an incredibly close game where that was the thing. And so what I would say about that is secondary choice, it's hard, and there's a lot of strategy that's going to be there to, can I get 15, or is it possible to get 15 is different than I bet I can always get 8.
Yep.
Right? I think
Yes.
those are two different sentences.
Yeah.
I'm very much a fan of picking the secondary that is the thing I think I'm already going to do that's going to give me 8 to 10 points. I am also, particularly with my orcs, because you get to stick up with a variety of units, I will be taking units thinking I can do these secondaries, right? I will probably take in 3 squads of 5 commandos. Those guys can go basically around the board, so they can give me position there. They're an infantry unit, so they can raise banners, they can do those sorts of things, and they're cheap. So they'll just be hopefully earning me 15 secondary points a game, and that is all I need from them.
Right.
I think keeping secondaries heavily in mind when list building should become a very common practice.
Yes.
I think it has to be.
Yeah,
I think if you could guarantee 1 secondary, that's good. If you can get to the point where you feel like you're really guaranteeing 2, and then audibly in the 3rd, I think you're in your that's kind of your winning position.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other game that we played that day was
On stream.
Oh, yes.
on stream. That round
Blast.
on stream was Orcs versus Imperial Guard Blast. Just to find out, like the primary quest was, how big is Blast? Everyone's losing their mind about Blast versus Hordes. Can we take a quintessential Horde with all of the trimmings and all the buffs that it takes to normally survive typical shooting, and put it up against Blast?
I'm gonna brag a little.
Yeah.
Everything I did last year that was any good, GT wins, RTTs, 4th through 1st and several, all of it was somewhere near 120 boys,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch
That
of
is what
characters
you're good
supporting
at.
them, and some looters or some tank busters or whatever that did some additional shooting so I didn't have to fight the thing I didn't want to do.
Right.
It's probably the army that I am best at. I brought that to play, and I wanted to see what it was. I brought 120 boys and a bunch of smash guns. And I brought it because, and I asked Peter to like bring me a bunch of blast. And he blasted the crap out of them. The grenade strat, so you can throw a bunch of
Grenades. That was
auto six grenades.
amazing, by the
Amazing.
way. Having 50 points of guardsman go, oh, this is 60 shots.
60 shots, 30 wounds, 10 actually wound,
Yeah,
9 orcs dead.
9 dead.
And I took this objective. Here we go.
But with that said, it didn't necessarily make the game utterly brutal.
Well, hordes are not dead.
Correct.
Not at all.
Is my strong opinion. The reason they had all of these negative things happen to them is that they played these missions incredibly well on accident.
Yep.
You get the points.
If they had not hurt hordes, the plague bearer list in particular,
It's disgusting.
Would be brutal.
It's on my list now to try.
yeah. I think that, so I'm going to say what Chuck said is so important that I'm going to say it again in slightly different words. Hordes got nerfed because hordes are ridiculously good at these missions.
They got balanced.
Yes.
Nerf suggests that they're not good anymore.
I think the idea
That's
that
not
hordes are out of the meta is completely wrong. I was talking to Nick this morning, Nick Nanavati this morning, and because there's lots of Nicks. And there's only really one Nick that I talk to regularly, but everybody else knows lots of Nicks. So I was talking to Nick Nanavati this morning, and he said, really, there's only 2 archetypes for 9th edition that we're seeing so far. You're either really durable infantry, and that's it, or you're really durable vehicles, and that's it. Like, that's what they're seeing, is like you're durable and you're maneuverable and you're either people or you're driving around. And I think that that's right. And I think that hordes is a type of durability.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you think of it as a very, very powerful dreadnought with 30 wounds,
And a big footprint.
because particularly with the new coherency rules where you basically need to stay in some sort of ball with maybe a slight tail coming on for a buff, but that tail's even costing you more. Some of the other observations. The wyvern.
Well, I did want to say on the table, the ball horde, because the table's smaller, doesn't bother me at all.
Nope.
You don't need to string out the way you did
I know.
because it's literally a smaller table.
And also,
You're trying to get to an objective
That's
with
good.
as much of people as you can to hold the objective for an entire battle round. If you have 3 people on it and then they're all strung out, that's actually not helping.
and then a secret about orc boy squads. Everybody talks about how much damage 30 orc boys can do. 30 orc boys can't actually engage ever, and
Even
even
worse
less
now.
of them can engage. You're going to engage 2 ranks. Most of the time when I fought Peter, a knob and 7 boys helped fight.
Yep.
It's not at all hard to make a 2-man string going back to a place to hold an objective or to catch a buff from a character. Like, all that's fine. It got a little dicey. Try and keep all that under one custom force field. But just a choice you gotta make. Some boys gotta die.
Yeah, it's like in the Imperial Guard blast situation. Like, I don't think you're going to see very many battle cannons going forward with the loss of the Hammer of Sentrance. You're going to see like demolishers and things of that
Oh,
nature.
because Vigilance died. In case
Yeah,
you
because
guys didn't know
Vigilance
that.
died.
Yeah.
Like Imperial Guard could crush a really mediocre
Just-
horde
no.
with crappy saves. They could do that, but against a properly built horde that actually has saves, like all things considered, like it's not just going to remove the horde from existence in 2 turns and win the game.
And one of the, I think the most interesting observations of that of the game is great. You can shoot your battle cannon at my horde of boys. That means you weren't shooting it at my smash guns, which
Mhm.
means you ran out of shot. The number of shots you got out of your battle cannon was actually the same because I killed it faster because you were killing my smash guns.
Yep.
It just was not. It was all at once instead of over time.
Yep, 100%.
So
Yeah, it's, the Wyvern's cool. The Wyvern is a really nasty pocket trick to throw at a horde if you have it.
I think every regardless should have 1.
yeah,
Just because
if you
the
don't need it,
because the blast on it is so powerful.
if you don't need it, you just jam it up like a chimera to jam up some part of the board and then
Yeah.
protect
Or
yourself.
just shoot something else.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't-
it doesn't matter.
It's not going to be awful, but it's.
I wouldn't go in hard though.
I wouldn't take 3.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go for basilisks, at least not right now. There's going to be a lot of thinking that Imperial Guard players are going to have to do about how we roll forward in the new edition because we're good at some parts of it, but we
Well,
still
I-
don't like being tagged. it's still not fun.
I think 120 guardsmen with tanks behind them
It's still gonna be good.
is a
Yeah.
list.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to get through.
You're investing.
And I think you'll
1,000
win.
points.
I think you'll win a lot. That's fine.
They're super good at the primary.
You're not going to table your opponent.
You're gonna take all the objectives. Yeah.
Like this is there's a learning step where you discover that you can win games without killing your opponent.
Yeah, I was tabled 2 of the games, I think, and I lost by like, not because I was tabled, but I still lost by like 2 points.
Yeah.
And I think technically I won one
Yeah.
that I got tabled on.
You won the first game, like because of paint score technically, but you still won it. Like
Well, it was still, it was
100%.
within
Yeah,
paint
yeah.
score.
It was 2 points. There was a 2-point delta, right?
Yeah.
When he got tabled.
Yeah.
Like
So because you have to play the mission, and if you can play the mission, it doesn't actually matter if you're killing your opponent because Killmore is gone.
mhm.
And I love that. I think that's way better. And also, MSU penalty being gone
Yep.
is really big. The game is more fun with more smaller units, in my opinion, than I have 6 drops and they're all 30-man units.
Well,
Yeah.
I have 6 drops, and they're all buffing this one unit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So game 4.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let them do theirs first because I think there's a lot to say about ours. What did you guys play game 4?
Played
Eldar versus Knights, and I ran a Star Cannon spam list. I had 20 of them. It was gonna be cool. I was like, this is so much firepower, and I've got crafters on all of them. It's gonna be awesome, and it was an awesome amount of firepower. That rapidly started losing Star Cannons when I had to put things on objectives to not lose the game immediately.
Mm.
Like, if
Yeah.
I have to lose 2 Star Cannons every time I want to take an objective from a knight, after I run out of Dire Avengers, that's, I very rapidly ran out of steam. And I was, if the game had gone on an infinite amount of time, the Wraith Lords would have killed everything. But guess what? Wraith Lords hiding in the back corner does not win you the game at all.
Yeah, this one had the I think this was the first one we played where there was like I think 0 objectives in the actual deployment
Deployment
zone.
zone. I
Yeah,
had
it was
that.
the one with the weird
Mhm.
little box on
Yeah.
Hammer
So-
and Anvil.
So there was no way to get an objective and stay in your deployment zone.
Yeah, which
And
is true.
it was hammer and anvil style. So it was like I lost. There was some dice gods going on a little bit there too. Like I shot at Eldar, did essentially nothing.
Yeah, you went
Killed like half a
first
plane.
and did nothing. And then I shot and I annihilated one knight and I brought another one down to half.
Yeah.
And then I moved out a bunch of Gyro Avengers and I basically prevented you from scoring anything that
Right.
turn. And then
And I think that was the first game I've had.
Yeah.
Where I scored 0, not 15 points on the first turn.
Because you had somebody to sacrifice, you had to secure to sacrifice.
Yeah.
and just
Did you
to knock him off. But then
Did you heroically intervene?
with knights you can't heroically intervene knights unless you have a specific household, right?
No, there's a character.
Yeah,
No, for characters
most
they just
characters.
can't.
That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Well,
That'll
that's
be a
different.
discussion. After that though, Star Cannons, like one mediocre turn meant I didn't pick up the other knight, another knight, and I brought it to within an inch of its life, and it then kind of ambiently died next turn. But guess what? That means I'm out of Dire Avengers, and I have to put Hornets on objectives,
Yeah.
and then the Hornets die, and then
That was definitely like because the game's in the middle of the board. Even though I'm taking a beating, in order for you to try and get any points, you still have to come out of that to try to score
Well,
points.
Knights love that because you can shoot that thing over there that you don't like,
Mhm.
and then charge this thing. So you're getting full value out of your
Yeah.
knight every turn once he
Yeah.
has to start putting units he cares about out
And
there.
and because he hit me so hard the first turn, it was definitely shoot to kill something, charge to kill something. Like
Yeah.
they had to there was third turn order was I think it was down to 3. It was definitely have to kill 6 units this turn to get everything off the objectives, and it was because shooting and charging.
And with the dual threat, because that's when the Crimson Hunters all died. Like I had 2 Crimson Hunters, that's when they died. They died to shooting, and then the Hornets or people on objectives died because Knights went over and kicked them, right?
Yep.
That's a double whammy, and that at that point I'm now rapidly running out of resources, and my ability to actually secure a kill on a Knight.
So for that matchup, what you needed to split some of your vehicles into 2 squads of Dire Avengers so you could keep sacrificing.
And I needed more Dire Avengers. I needed more things that could actually go onto objectives and say, hey, deal with me. If you don't deal with me, guess what? You're
And
not
here,
gonna win.
and this is why I wanted you guys to talk first, because he was playing a list, an Eldar list that in 8th edition would be brutal. They would wreck people. So transitioning to our game, I played. Chuck brought an orc list, which we learned a ton from. So I want to let you talk about that, but I'm going to talk about Eldar first because it matches in with this. So I said to Nick, now Vadi, what do you like for Harlequins? And he sent me a list, and I played that list, and it's 32. What is it? 7 by 6.
36, 40,
42.
42.
42 Dire Avengers, and Azermen, and a Warlock, and a Farseer rather. There's your Craftworld Eldar. That's all the Craftworld Eldar you're going to need. And then it's the rest of the points. Yeah, Farseer. And then the rest of the points are two big 10 and 9-man troop units for Harlequins, and 2 5s, 6 of the bikes, and then all the broken supporting characters, which were all amazing. And that is the list. It does not have Wraith Lords, it does not have Night Spinners, it does not have Fire Prisms, it does not have Crimson Hunter Exarchs, it doesn't have any real anti-tank shooting other than the Harlequin bikes.
And Doom and Tripping Capitals.
Yes, right?
Let's not underestimate.
Yeah. So it's a completely different list than what worked in 8th edition. It's completely different. And I would say that it was bonkers powerful.
Yeah, it's the top list in my mind at this point.
Yeah.
That we've experienced.
We haven't seen Death Guard or AdMech yet, which are the things that the internet is telling us are the best things, so let's just leave that as a caveat.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm borrowing AdMech this week, so the next time we stream there will be an AdMech game, so we'll get to see some AdMech. Maybe in a couple weeks we can do AdMech versus Death Guard.
Yeah, start testing that out.
That'd be pretty fun. Evidently AdMech versus Death Guard is really interesting. That's what I've been told.
I suspect I walk forward and you shoot guns at me. But we'll see.
We've done that game before a few times. That army that Nick made is a bunch of bodies with 4-up invuls.
Yep.
That's literally what it is. And it moves on the board and it takes the objectives and it kills you if you get close. And if you don't play defensively enough, the Solitaire or the Troop Master or somebody is going to go ninja flying into your army and he's going to kill the thing that you care about.
I like that because it emphasizes, like, if you have a durable army that's focused off this aura or whatever, if you ever make a mistake, you can take advantage of it. That also means they have to play more conservatively or make that mistake.
Right.
And they can take advantage of that.
That list was so good that I will be building it. Like, I'm going to want to play that list further.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy more Dire Avengers. I have everything else. I just need more Dire Avengers. So very excited about that. Who I played into is a crazy amount of work things that I had no idea what did.
I played orc vehicles. I think every orc player dreams of the day that they can bring the Mad Max look at all my vehicles list. And I was like, I tried the hordes. This is the other dream that people have. I'm going to give it a try as well.
And it was not bad at all.
No. And I made several mistakes in the creation of the list and also how I played it. So I think it is, with some tuning and probably a couple other people's help, it's going to reach a point where it's pretty viable. I brought the gun wagon that gets to shoot the super big gun, 3 scrap jets with the upgrade to fight twice,
Which were great.
Which were fantastic.
They were
the hero of that batch because they put out a lot of damage over a bunch of guys with 4-up invuls, so they just put plenty in. It had 3 of the shock jumps with the upgrade. Those guys were pretty bad in that particular matchup, but as soon as I realized that, I started using them for, like, go out and hold space for me, or, you know, they just did become sacrifices. And then I had 2 units of boys. I had the truck, and then I also had a Bonebreaker battle wagon. The Bonebreaker battle wagon
Which died to Shuriken Fire.
was not very terribly useful to my army. Oh, I'm sorry. I also had 2 units of 3 Meganauts.
I like that.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
The 2-3
They're good for going, particularly not a vehicle heavy army, because the weapons that you're going to use to kill my vehicles are also weapons you'd have to then use to kill my infantry.
Yep.
I
The
would-
2-up save was really helpful.
Yeah, and they're decently good at punching.
Yeah.
You give them the +1 to hit strat, and they're going to kill most things they come in contact with. I would take out things like the Bonebreaker battle wagon, and a couple of other pieces, and maneuver them around a little bit, and try to get more boys in trucks, because driving a truck with 10 boys onto an objective makes it yours. There's so much pain in the ass the person has to go through to get that off, that it's now yours. And then next turn, those boys can jump out of that truck and charge into the next objective, and the truck just sits back and goes, I got this. I'll hold on to this for you. While the rest of the army pushes forward.
And then you have guns.
Yeah, sort of.
Well,
Yes,
yes,
it is a big shooter.
Okay.
It hits with a strength 5 a turn. It's not,
Fair enough.
right?
That game was the game that most left me saying this is a different game.
Yeah.
But also I played 4 lists that didn't work, that I would not have played in 8th edition.
Mhm.
Is what I've done
Yeah.
so far.
Mhm.
So I think that it's a different game, and it's gonna take a lot of us time to learn. And the interesting thing is gonna be, and I'm gonna share this thought without going down the obvious rabbit hole of what's going on in the world right now, by just saying the rest of the world is gonna get to decide what competitive 40K looks like while America watches. That's what's gonna happen right now. And I think that because Canada's having tournaments this weekend, there's tournaments in Europe this weekend. The level that COVID is affecting countries is not the same. We don't need to talk about why that is. So our tournaments are going to be locked down longer than theirs, which means we're going to start seeing tournament results for other parts of the world playing the same missions.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be really neat.
Yeah.
And every meta is different, and every country's meta is different, and that's going to be really fascinating. And I think that's what we're going to see for a while.
I think it's actually going to have because of our world scenario and the fact that we're hopefully moving to everybody playing similar missions all the time, we're going to see people become more accustomed to a world meta as opposed to a regional meta. So I think we'll see not a complete shift, but there will be some shift in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's cool. One of the things I thought about doing is trying to recreate end of round games.
Oh,
tournaments. While we can't go to tournaments,
I love that.
I've thought about the idea of just, okay, so there was a big tournament in a part of the world we are not in. These are the 2 lists that played on the last round. You know, Mitch knows one, I know the other, whatever.
Play game?
Let's play it.
I love that, yeah.
So I've thought about that. It's hard to completely replicate it because like you don't know what the train looked like, and, you know, like
Sure.
you don't know how those people played the list, but it's still fun.
Good way to learn.
So and then we didn't really we mentioned Vigil is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it doesn't matter.
So basically, there's wording in the tournament pack, in the GT pack, that you can't play with Vigilance. That's what go on.
Specialist attachments.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually think that's great. It's less books.
Yeah.
They've said that the Psychic Awakening rules will be in the Codex, so you won't need the new Codex for your army when it comes out, and Psychic Awakening.
I've been told similar things before, and it wasn't true. So
Well,
we'll see.
we were told doesn't mean it's happening.
Yeah.
Right? And the other side of that, though, is if Vigilance has gone too, wouldn't it be great if I could take 1 book with me?
With the move towards monofactoring being reasonable, like I could just bring my Death Guard book with me.
Or maybe just a tablet with
Oh.
Yeah.
one thing on
Who
it.
has the best painted model here?
I do.
don't- Okay.
Which one?
What?
Which one?
That one?
I like my eggs.
That doesn't matter. The time with the best paint one you like.
Hey, my eggs painted though.
Do we need to go in the house and bring Michael and Stephanie's paint awards? Is that what we're gonna do here? Like,
She's
I
not-
actually
she's not
know
here
it's like-
playing.
I own beautiful models as well. That's all I'm saying.
I have a single fully painted tank. It looks nice. It's a nice single tank.
I have a narrow throat that's covered in glitter. I think I win.
Well, I've got big pretty magnets.
Not here.
Yeah, I actually kind of regret that. I think
There's
it's fun to try.
Nick, you're asking several really good questions that we don't have answers for yet, so I'm just not going to answer any of them. So he's asking several questions that are fantastic questions that we just don't know. Like, do you think mixing durable infantry and vehicles isn't something you want to attempt? Well, we'll attempt it.
But we're talking about Mega Knobs
Yeah,
and
right.
the buggies. That works.
Yeah.
So and
Did you guys
that's
notice
the
anything
idea.
about creating a good board terrain-wise? No.
So when I built the boards that we were playing on, I tried to use the same amount of terrain that we would normally use
Okay.
and squish it.
Smaller table, yeah.
So what you're using is probably fine, and just go.
I think we're treating a lot of stuff as obscuring, and I think that'll be the big thing we'll see is that the way the game is.
Mm-hmm.
We're treating a lot of stuff as obscuring because I like movement to matter, and so does everybody else.
Yeah. Well, that's your terrain meta, right? Like, we've always had that problem. Like, what does that store have? Like,
Yeah.
the local store that I go to a lot has a ton of ruins. They changed their terrain up, but now they have a whole bunch of other things, so I had to like adjust.
How
Yeah.
long do we think games will take once everybody understands how the game goes?
I think it would be really contingent on whether or not it's like a tournament game. I could see a tournament game being 2.5 hours.
I would go under 2. Like if there's 2 people who know what they're doing, I think you can get it done under 2 hours.
For sure. Well, I mean, I was finishing 8th edition games in under 2 hours, but
Yeah.
like the question is, if both armies have close combat, how long does the game take? To me, that's the actual question.
That's where my
Because in 8th
2.5
edition, the close combat was what slowed down the game so badly.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We blew through 120 boys versus guard.
Yeah, we were cruising. That was
That's
probably about.
Probably the longest game in an eighth.
But that stream was also like 3 hours 30. Like you
Yeah.
guys blew past 3 hours in that.
Yeah, no, and like
We're also all rusty.
that like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
part of it. Like
Very
when things are cruising, I think you're looking at for like close combat 2.5 hours probably if everyone's like sharp. In casual games, they could easily take as long as an expedition game
Yeah.
because like
Once you start bullshitting.
for like when we played our first game, we were both like how do the missions work, and then we worked through everything,
Yeah.
and we burned a lot of time
Oh.
Yeah.
on a list that was I have tanks, you have knights. This should be fast,
Yeah.
but you know.
Bring it down, Titan Slayer,
Yeah, right.
Recon, done.
Yeah, it's I think that the tournament rounds will be 2.5 hours. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. People are wondering, can we do 2 hour rounds? And I think there's no way.
Yeah, no. That's
You
way
could.
different.
But you'd rather have fun. I
Yeah.
think is what
Yeah.
what
You
that
get a
is.
2 hour rounds on a clock and have people time out. Right.
Right.
That's what you can do.
I think it's the only pregame that's going to take time is selecting your secondaries. You gotta look at those secondaries and get real familiar with them, because that was one of our biggest time-consuming things I think over the weekend.
Well, they're way harder than they were before.
And there were, because that makes it harder to do. I think there's a few more, but not that many more than what there was.
It
in
feels
NXT
like
before.
there's less.
Does it
Because
feel like this?
there might be more overall, but like when you're like, well, I need to take like because you have to take at most one from each category.
Yeah.
Like you're like, man, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I have a lot of options here. I can either kill vehicles or
You take Titan
Kill
Hunter, and
character,
you're like, this
like-
category is dead.
yeah, like it's gone.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So that's it. I spent more time than I probably should have staring at the secondary sheet trying to figure out what I was gonna do, and I still made bad decisions. I just
Well,
like
we don't know them very well. I
Yeah.
think we're also coming from a mentality of like, which one of these am I going to be able to maximize?
Yeah.
And so it's just like you will learn past that problem.
yeah, like I took one of the big blunders in our game with orcs was I was like, I'll take the vehicle killing one because you got a smash gun. They can smash it. They give me points. I can take that. When the reality of the situation was that was very much not what I should have done because I have to deal with the orc boys and that's going to require all of my effort.
It's going to take your entire game. But
Yeah.
you didn't know. We didn't know enough.
Ooh, you didn't talk about outflanking all the smash guns.
Oh yes.
Oh my god, guys.
That
So-
was the galaxy brain move.
120 boys coming across the table, and Peter's playing Talarn, so all of his tank commanders are going to move, and the rest of his tank firing is indirect fire. So if I put my smash guns down, they're just targets. That would take some pressure off my boys. I don't think it would have been bad. But instead, I spent 3 CP and I put them all into reserve, brought them on turn 2 at angles, and cleaned off, most importantly, the Wyvern.
Well, like
But then also, I think a Chimera.
you picked up the positioning of the smash guns allowed you to actually engage my vehicles, whereas if they had been actually in your deployment zone, I would have been able to completely hide.
Because moving 3 inches, I'm not going to be able to compensate for the amount of movement you have.
And because we were like across from one another in table quarters, if memory serves. So like there are a lot of ways for me to potentially hide. But if you appear on the other table corners, my life is a lot harder, and that allowed you to pick up tanks that would have continued to shoot the entire game, and that probably would have been decisive if you know.
Yeah.
Like-
If the terrain had been slightly different, or we come from different angles or something, where I could put them and force you to shoot at them, that would at least take a pressure off my boys. It was this table, and we were going diagonal at each other. There was nowhere I could put those that mattered, right? Like,
There's a question about whether 2,000 points feels right, and what's funny about that is, so the table's like 24% smaller, and the army's about 15% more expensive. So in theory, we've got 9% less space for the models we're playing with, something like that, roughly. I mean, that's a little rough, right? But
Yeah.
I didn't notice any of that.
So there's
I didn't feel like I had less. I mean, I guess I felt like I had less stuff. I don't know. I didn't. Once we were in the games, I didn't think about it at all.
I noticed there was 2. When Chuck and I played one, when we did the Vanguard one, because of his crazy defilers, like
Yeah.
his deployment was limited. But that
Okay.
was also probably model choice.
well,
Not that they're bad.
we were doing Vanguard, and there was also 2 big buildings, and I was trying to be everybody inside this box.
Yeah.
Like, there were too many moving pieces. My army is flawed in that there's just too much parking lot
And-
there.
And that second, the last one I played again, that box one.
The little hammer and anvil.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
Baby
like
hammer.
Baby hammer.
yeah, baby hammer. I mean, I had 5 models, and I'm all like, I'm close together. Like
Yeah.
I noticed crampedness in that one, and I only had like 5 models.
I just made a ball.
Yeah. So
There's my army.
like I can't directly compare like the old way of building like specifically Imperial Guard lists because with the loss of the Hammer of Sundoons and things like that, like lists change. Like we had
Yeah.
like stuff got shaken up, so there's no direct comparison there. But like in my first game against Vince, I brought a bunch of basilisks and like I had a lot of tanks and I like that felt like I had too much stuff. Not in the sense that it's like, oh man, this is way too much for the points. It was like I have so much stuff that I don't know where I'm going to put it, and that means that stuff is exposed. And that even kind of came up in my game against you. I had a tank commander, which could have really kicked my butt if your charge had gone right. I didn't know where to put him.
Yeah.
I put him in a place that was a bad place to put him. Like
I failed my first turn rerollable 8-inch charge, would have killed the tank commander and touched a chimera.
Yep.
That would have been a huge
that would have
step.
been huge.
And what it would have done is also pushed you back to here, making more of the table mine, which had an objective in it.
Yeah.
Which
So
makes
that's, the decisiveness of that is on me for making that kind of a deployment mistake, but at the same time, it's like, I didn't normally question, like, I can hide 3 tank commanders, right?
Yeah.
Well,
It's harder.
maybe not, like, so I just kind of stuck one out in the open, and I didn't, didn't think through the fact that, I should probably put something in front of him. Like, it seems like a good idea, right?
Less space.
I would say that I think the fixed deployment for the missions is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's one like we know
Oh,
for each
the
mission.
map is the same, but I don't know if I care.
I care because the deployment zone rolling is another field map.
Okay.
It takes time.
Well, but it's not only that. There are matchups where the deployment zone combined with the mission combined with the map, you can get a combination that is a field
I
map.
think that's right,
Yeah.
It also means that there are times where particular deployments and particular missions are bad,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's just gone.
What does Chuck think of? I'm going to separate these up because you feel very strongly differently about the two things that we asked about.
Okay.
What do you think of Killicans?
I painted 6 killer cans during quarantine time because I was extremely excited for them.
And you did play.
And they're not here.
I suspect they will never get to play 40k.
And what do you think of Death Dreads?
I am ordering 9. Well, that's not true. I'm ordering 8 because I have one. Their wound to armor save to toughness to points value is fantastic, and you put guns or claws or whatever you want job on them. I think they're fantastic.
Okay. People are asking what needs to be FAQ'd. Are there any rules that we think are just completely wrong right now?
I mean, like, it would be nice to get a final answer on the whole multiple dice blast situation.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
That's
that
pretty
I can think of.
confusing. It turns out people were thinking that you can cast Smite more than once with the same caster, and that we haven't had an answer on that yet.
That needs to be.
And actually, Nick pointed out that if you just read the psychic section, it's completely obvious.
Oh,
It says, because after your psyker casts a power, that psyker chooses another power,
oh, okay.
is what the wording is. Well, smite, you can't smite and then go, and now for my second trick, I will do smite again. That's not,
Unless you could somehow get 2 smites,
yeah.
but I don't think they can do that.
So, let's see, we do have anything else here? We're not going to go super long today, guys, because we're going to play another game.
Yeah.
So, in probably an hour, because we're going to eat some lunch, in an hour we're going to be on stream, and Chuck is going to play a Death Guard list that John Lennon calls legit and terrifying. So
That's endorsing.
Yeah.
That makes me feel very good inside.
and I went to John and Nick and said, what do I play against it that'll be interesting? There was a lot of conversation. At one point last night I was playing Ultramarines.
Wow, that got that deep.
I don't know Marines, so I don't think that would have been a good experience for anybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we haven't had any sort of Marines
We
on the weekend.
we're not Marine players.
None of us are Marine players.
Right.
So you solo your Blood Angels.
To
Recently.
get ready for night.
The best
Yeah.
we can do is proxy a bunch of my possessed as the Marines.
Yeah, we could do that, but it's better that, the next time, we'll get people out to stream that have Marine armies. Like, Marine armies are a big part of the game. We just don't have them. So he's going to be playing Death Guard. What's going to be in your list?
I'm going to have 20 Plague Marines with 18 bolt guns and 2 flails. I'll have 2 5-man Plague Marine squads with 2 flails and additional knives on everybody else. So they're all punchy, but super punchy for 120. I'll have 20 or 19 possessed, somewhere in there.
20.
Super high number. And then I'll have supporting characters with Tallyman, the souped up doctor to give them feel no pain rerolls on 1s and 2s. And there's one more. There's one more support character there. I'm blanking on who he is. Oh, the Noxious Blightbringer.
Ah,
That seems important.
everybody's names, all the names are carved.
Yeah.
Oh,
Two
So-
squads of 5 spawn.
Okay.
ooh.
The Possessed and the squads of 5 spawns are all getting Feel No Pains. And then I am taking the Wordbearer patrol with the character, the sorcerer, so I can get my prescience and work time. And then I am taking a Feculent Normal.
Okay. I know what most of those things are. So that's great. So I asked what we should play, and there was conversation about Ultramarines. They said AdMech would be good, but I don't have AdMech yet. And then this morning, Nick sent me a message and said, play the Tyranid list. I think it'll be a really good matchup for that list, and we have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
The Tyranid list that I've been playing this weekend is good, and we need to see what it does into that matchup.
Yeah.
So I've changed it. It's better now. So I'll have a, what's it called? Leviathan Battalion. Because,
That's where the strength is.
yeah, right? Actually, in our game, the Feel No Pains won me the game.
Oh, so good.
Without the Feel No Pains, I lose hard in that matchup. But so I have a Neurothrop, and I have a Malanthrop, and then I have 3 units of 5 Zonethrops, and then I've got 3 units of 10 Gaunts, 3 units of 3 Rippers, 3x3 Pyrovores, which we didn't talk about,
Pyrovores.
2 Exocrine at Tronifex, and 55 points left to spend. Is where I'm at right now as we prepare for the game.
We should talk about Power Force. And then we should probably.
We should talk about Power Force. So that game's going to be in an hour. It's going to be on our Twitch. You might be hearing this as a podcast, and that game might have already happened. If you wanted to watch it, you could go to twitch.tv/BiffPod, or you could go to the BiffPod YouTube channel, which someone told me there is a way to get youtube.com/BiffPod. So I will go figure out how that works. I don't know if I have to pay for it or something, but right now it's like youtube.com/blah.
Just search BiffPod 40K.
Yeah, BiffPod 40K, and you'll find it. All of our stream games will be there from the weekend, so you guys can watch them. They're all pretty interesting, at the very least. None of them are so lopsided that they're not interesting, I didn't think.
The Emperor's Children one is, I don't think is that
A
great.
lot happened in that was
But
interesting,
There's a
though.
lot of things you can learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to do them yourself.
Right, exactly. So we're going to do that in an hour. If you guys want to know how that game goes, make sure to come check it out. And then over the next few weeks, you'll start getting smaller, bite-sized, faction-focused 40K episode or podcast episodes. So that's where we're at right now. But before we go, we're going to talk about Pyrovores.
Yeah.
So a Pyrovore is 28 points. It's also a $50 model, but let's not worry about that right now. A Finecast. It's a $50 Finecast model for 28 points. A Pyrovore is 28 points, and it is a T4, 4 wound, 4 up save model. First of all, like when I talked about Ridge Runners, you have to think about durability for points. The way we fell into Ridge Runners is because they're one of the most durable ways to bring wounds for GSC. This is one of the most durable ways for wounds to bring Tyranids.
I think it's important to compare him to Primaris Marine right now.
Yes,
You compare him to Primaris Intercessor, 20 points, T4, 2 wounds, 3 up save.
yes,
He's T4, 4 wounds, 4 up save.
for 8 more points.
Yeah.
It's
a lot.
He has a assault heavy flamer.
Yep.
So he can advance and shoot it. And
A
you-
better.
No, it's just heavy flamer.
Well,
it's
better
assault.
range.
Oh, yeah, it does have better range.
Yeah, it has.
Which is
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's got a 10-inch heavy flamer. The 10-inch heavy flamer means that you can outflank them, which I will do almost every game, because they literally will just come in on a turn and be like, you know what, this unit gets 96 heavy flamers.
And nobody likes that.
No,
well, the
it's-
Firewars do.
The Herbivores are excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's why we put them in the list. But then while we're playing with them, the Twitch is like, did you read the rest of their data sheet? Because they do other things. When they get wounded in combat, they have the strat that Tyranids have to do mortals on 6s. They have that by default. So if you kill a unit of 12 of them, on average they're going to do 2 mortal wounds in combat. Because you roll a dice for each of those wounds. On 6s they do mortal wounds. And whenever one of them dies, on a 4-up, they do a mortal wound to an enemy unit within 3 inches.
Yeah.
So what I did against Chuck is I outflanked them in, flamed and then charged and got on an objective. Chuck came in to clear them off, and they just and spewed poison on him the whole time he was trying to take care of them.
I lost 4 Marines and most of my Chaos Lord to killing 3 of them off of my objective. because we didn't have guns.
They definitely need to be shot.
Yeah.
Close combat's a rough way to deal with them.
So,
Knights don't like that.
and if you're
Close
outflanking
combat.
them, you can choose like, oh, I see you're weak to shooting in this
Mhm.
area, or there's something I can hide behind. I'll move them in here. Very strong feats.
So 2 CP, they go on outflank. They can come in, turn 2 or turn 3, flame, hold an objective, hide in a corner. Against you, I put them on an objective in cover,
Mhm.
and they just kind of sat there. And it's like, okay, Knight, do you want to shoot at these guys? Like you can, but they're it's not like they're not going to die, but they're pretty durable.
Well, and because I have in that matchup, like I remember I have limited actions. Like if I shoot them, then I'm probably not charging them. I'm charging something else.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's all about clearing off the objectives. So when you put them on an objective, I have to do something with them.
Yeah. Pyrophores are an amazing, amazing thing, and I will be kit bashing some because I'm not going to spend $50 a piece for them.
That's rough.
For Finecast.
Yeah,
You
you
can
can
also-
probably spend
I can
half of
find
that
that.
and kit bash a better plastic one.
I think I'm going to turn Hive Guard into them.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm going to
Do
do.
they have plastic hide guard yet?
Yeah,
Two different versions.
they're right there.
I'll have to take a look at those.
So, I actually think Hive Guard are good too. That's one of the Tyranid things that I think is actually really good right now that I haven't put on the
Stuff
table
that
yet.
was 36 inches that you were like, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
36 inches is amazing. I'm looking to Scorpius again because 48 inches is the board.
Right, you don't need more than 48 inch range.
Yeah. So I can choose whatever hiding place I want, and it can just shoot from there.
So on the bombshell, the pyrophores are amazing.
Yeah.
And we were blown away by the fact that they're 28 points a model. On that bombshell, we're going to leave you guys with it. We're going to play another game of 40K, and there'll be a lot more streaming over the next few months. That's going to be my only way I play 40K for a while.
Yep.
We're thinking about once COVID's slightly better, we're going to try to do a league where the games are streamed. So there's like 8 people that you follow in it, and they all are playing each other. And
Yep. We got
a bunch, not all the games are streamed, but a bunch of the games are streamed, and it's kind of a bracket thing. Yeah. So we're gonna probably do that. But that's it for now, guys. We will be back later this week, actually. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day. And if you're gonna watch our game, we'll be on in an hour
Bye.
or so.
Bye.
Bye.